Handily ho, YouTube. It is mid-month, so you know what that means. I got my comics, I read my comics. I've actually been able and ready to go on this video for a little while, but we had a little problem with some water getting loose under the bathroom sink, which comes down into my man cave. So we got a little wet carpet situation, so I had to run the dehumidifier for a bit and that kind of thing. But everything's back per the normal, no real damage. We're all good to go. I can get back to making my videos. So this month's trip, August trip to the comic shop, was not quite as fruitful as it has been the last few months because, like I said last time, the Transformers back issues that I discovered a while back, that series kind of ran its course, so I didn't have all those extra Transformers comics. So today it's all Ninja Turtles, and there's only about 6 or 7 issues, so it's not super light, but it's on the lighter side. So let's just start her right up. Issue 3 of the Saturday Morning Adventures Ninja Turtles series. So last time, you remember, the little plot that took place over the first 2 issues with the Rat King controlling the turtles kind of wrapped up. So they ended up going back to TCRI because the Rat King originally stole some tech from there in the first couple issues. So the turtles were going back to talk to the scientists there to just make sure everything was okay. And the one guy was like, well, actually we had a probe go out on the ocean floor to measure whatever they were after, and it kind of went missing. So I was just wondering if, seeing as you're turtles, you could swim and shit, could you go check it out? So the turtles go looking for this missing probe and end up discovering an underwater city called Turtleantis. So it's not inhabited by turtle mutants, it's actually inhabited by some sort of underwater amphibious sea creatures of some sort. And when the turtles get there, they're all like, oh my god, turtles. They revere turtles. So they're really excited to see the turtles arrive, but being there, a condition is they have to go in this tournament of championship fighting sort of thing. They have to go in and fight the creature that's been ruling the roost in these fights lately. And so they're like, okay, well, and the people explain to them that this current champion is becoming a pain in the ass, and he just won't go away, and he's disastrous, he's always making a ruckus, and they just want him gone. So they want the turtles to fight him and find a way to get him out of there. So they enter the arena, and guess who comes out but Slash. So the turtle's like, oh, Slash, okay, let's engage him and then find a way to come up with a plan to get him out of here, right? So they're fighting him, and of course Slash is a monster, he's a beast, so they're having troubles. But eventually Donatello, being the brains of the operation, I think it was Donatello, comes up with a plan to flood the city, and because it's underwater, but it's actually contained by some sort of thing that can keep it airtight or whatever, so you can actually breathe air and not have water in the city. So he's like, Slash can only breathe underwater for a certain amount of time, so we'll flood the city. Eventually he'll have to go up top to breathe, he'll lose interest, and he'll be gone. So that's kind of the plan as they engage Slash in this fight and then execute this plan to flood Turtleantis and be rid of the scourge that is Slash. Next up, the regular ongoing Turtles series, issue 141. If you remember last time, Raph got caught right at the end of the issue around the body of a dead mutant and got taken in. So at the start of the issue, some favors are called in with people he knows in the police kind of structure, and he's released on bail. And but he meets up with Jenica, who comes to get him out of jail, and he's like, this isn't over, we got to investigate, we got to go back to the crime scene and find out what the hell went on with this dead mutant, right? And this rash of dead mutants that have been turning up. So him and Jenny go to do that. In the meantime, back at the Turtles home base or whatever it is, last issue they came across this mutant named Bob. He is like a baboon mutant. So Bob's kind of leery of the Turtles, but they're giving him a tour of everything and hoping to bring him on as a new student in their dojo and another member of their growing family sort of thing. So they're showing him the ropes, and eventually they take him out on a kind of one of their tours of the city where they go out and they go on patrol and look for things that are happening that they need to maybe fix. So they take him out on that. In the meantime, back to Raph and Jenny. They go and investigate the scene of the crime. They enter some buildings, and lo and behold, they enter this, I think it's a meat processing facility or something like that, and they find the weasels, the little itty bitty weasels that used to be part of their team, snacking on some carcasses in the meat processing factory. And they're like, the weasels, guys, do you remember us? But they're kind of feral now or whatever. And so they're kind of dealing with these weasels, and as they're dealing with them, out of the shadows behind them, these two glowing eyes come out, and it's Leatherhead, a deranged and psychotic Leatherhead. Yes, the alligator man himself. And so he snatches away one of the weasels. So Jenny and Raph kind of exit the building, and they're kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? And they run into the rest of the turtles and kind of explain the situation. And as the issue closes off, we see Leatherhead communicating with Venus, who we haven't seen for a while. So obviously she's still up to something. Her and Leatherhead are aligned. And Leatherhead then, it's almost like he's under mind control. And he gets lured back to the lair of Dr. Barlow. If you remember Dr. Barlow, he is the one who offered Donatello enhancements or whatever. The one that was fixing, kind of splicing mutants back together who have lost body parts and stuff like that. He's very shady, to say the least. So that's who Leatherhead is being controlled by, it seems. And that's kind of how this issue closes off. So it'll be interesting to see what the hell is up with him, because I kind of thought he was out of the picture now. I had kind of forgotten about him, really. But I guess he's still a player. Now, there were a couple of issues from the ongoing series that I had missed that they'd forgot to put in my stash when they hold my books every month. And when I went to look on the shelves for the ones that I missed each time, they were all sold out. So I had to buy some on eBay and pay a bit more than, I would have if I'd just been able to buy them at the time they were released. But you got to complete it, right? You got to complete it. And they weren't that much more, so it's not that bad. But the one right now is issue 138 of the regular ongoing series. So this one took place right as the war for Mutant Town had just kind of started. So the Utroms were attacking. The first thing we see is Hob with the weasels approaching the Mutant Town wall that was constructed by Baxter Stockman or whoever was behind it to keep all the mutants contained in Mutant Town, and they're planting explosives. But the weasels don't like Man Ray because of past encounters with him, and Man Ray is also along on this mission. And so the weasels kind of lose their minds, and then they go after Man Ray and trigger an early detonation of the bombs on the wall to bring down the wall of Mutant Town. In the meantime, before the wall is brought down, the turtles and everybody are fighting the war in Mutant Town against the Utroms. On Burnow Island, Sari and the Nova Posse have gone off after the Utroms leader, Chirel, who was the one who killed Krang. And eventually they get the drop on him, and Sari kills him. And they announce to all the Utroms that are still attacking Mutant Island, Mutant Town, they say, like, here's your leader. He's got a stake through his forehead. He's dead. You may as well fuck off and get lost and end this war. So eventually they do get lost. The war kind of winds down. And but there's still a lot of confusion between the mutants and the humans in Mutant Town. So I forget who it is, but somebody kind of does a psychic thing that chills everybody out, sort of thing. So and in the end, we see Hob come back to Mutant Town after blowing up the wall, and he's very despondent. And the turtles are like, Hob, what's wrong? And he's like, the weasels, they were in that blast. So he's all sad about that. But then the last thing we see before the issue is over is Alapex digging the weasels out of the wreckage of the wall. And it appears as though they're still alive, although in a very bad shape. And she says, you're going to be my family now. So obviously she's going to take them in and nurse them back to health. So that's how that one ends up. Next up, I think this is the 5th and final issue in the Usagi Yojimbo series. And it's pretty quick and simple. There's 2 fights going on. The main army of Usagi Yojimbo's forces are being attacked by Dr. Elsewhere's or Dr. Wenware. Is that his name? I forget. Whatever it is. Dr. Elsewhere. That's actually a pretty good name. Dr. Wenware. His robotic samurai creations are attacking this army, and the fight's not going well. In the meantime, the turtles and Usagi have finally infiltrated Wenware's lair, and they're taking the fight to him and the forces he has within his lair. But these forces are a lot stronger robots than just his generic foot soldier kind of thing. So they're having a real tough go of it. But eventually they get the drop on Wenware, and eventually, just as he's about to be defeated, he's like, man, this little device that allows me to time travel on my wrist. See ya, turtles. But just before he zaps off into wherever time space he's going, Leonardo, I think it is, slices off his wrist, which has the device on it. So Wenware actually pops off into wherever, but his device is left behind. So Donatello's like, well, we got our ticket back home with this device, and Dr. Wenware is going to be lost in a continuous tour around the time-space continuum because his journey started, but it's not going to complete because he lost his device, sort of thing. So it's like, that problem's over with. Now let's head home. So they warp back to their own time frame, and I think they go and get sushi, or at least that was what Michelangelo, I think it was talking about when they got home. So that series all wrapped up. Next up, the 5th and final issue of the Last Ronin series. So at the end of the last issue, Michelangelo had to take part in that cage fight against his buddy Shaka. And Shaka sacrificed himself, right, to guarantee Michelangelo's freedom. So this picks up right after that fight, and Michelangelo is raging because he's like, Shaka is dead because of me. Not really because of me, but because of these maniacs that are running this place. So he kind of loses his mind and tries to go at them and get his revenge on all of them, but he's too well contained. They have too many contingencies, and they bring him down. He wakes up in the hospital where a doctor's trying to fix him up, and he snaps, but the girl that runs the facility, I forget her name, is like, whoa, chill out. You won the tournament. We're going to make good on our promise and take away your collar or whatever it was that will explode your head if you do whatever, and you're free to go. And so eventually, though, he threatens her and wants to do her harm in the pursuit of getting after her ultimate boss, who is behind this whole thing, Deathworm. And she's like, you want to go after Deathworm? Be my guest. It's your own funeral, sort of thing, right? So she's like, yeah, he's here. So Michelangelo's like, thank you very much. So he takes off, and Deathworm is actually holed up in the Roman Colosseum, or the ruins of. So Michelangelo eventually makes his way there and engages all this guy's forces. When Deathworm comes out, he's just a normal-looking kind of Japanese guy, maybe. He's not huge. He's actually a little bit older. Like, Michelangelo's like, you're Deathworm? And then they have a fight, and eventually Michelangelo wins and gets his vengeance. Right at the end of the issue, though, we see a 2-page thing where the new generation of turtles that Casey is training, there's a little speech that says, like, you four, you're all named for this, that, the other thing. You've come a long way, and now your training has completed, and now we take what we learned in the sewers up to the streets. So we see the 4 new turtles kind of on the streets getting ready to do whatever it is they're going to do. So I don't think the Last Ronin series is going to, well, restart. I'm thinking maybe these 4 new turtles might have their own series starting soon, and maybe have some adventures with them, sort of thing. But I have a feeling either way something's coming that has something to do with these 4 new turtles, sort of thing. So we'll see soon enough. Next up, issue 2 of the Turtles and the Street Fighter. Oh, I love this series. So it picks up right where the last one left off, where the Turtles track down the Street Fighter gang in the streets after the bum match that Raph and Guile had. And the fighting has resumed outside on the streets. But eventually, M. Bison sends out the forces or whatever, and they capture them, and they bring them back to the fighting tournament. So They are back in the locker room, and the two sides are talking about how they should probably team up and put their heads together and figure out what the hell is going on. But there's too much animosity between the two sides for them to actually make that happen yet. So in the meantime, more fights have to go on. So we see Leonardo and Ryu fight, really evenly matched. In the end, Leonardo gets the drop on Ryu and wins that match. Then it's Donatello and Ken. Donatello doesn't really want to fight, so Ken's just basically beating the shit out of him. And then eventually, though, everybody gets loose and spills into the ring, and it just turns into a free-for-all. So that's when M. Bison releases all of his foot soldiers into the casino or whatever kind of facility it is where these fights are taking place, and they start raiding the place, and a big brouhaha kind of ensues, and the Turtles and the Street Fighter gang eventually do team up once this happens, and they all take the fight to these foot soldiers and beat them down. But when the dust clears, everybody's accounted for except Raph and Chun-Li. They've gone missing in the fray, and they know that it's Baxter Stockman and M. Bison or whoever the tournament. I'm not even sure if they know that's who was running the tournament, but they know whoever's behind all of these events is who has taken Raph and Chun-Li captive, and obviously they're going to keep on working together to figure out where these two went. Last up, we actually have another Turtles team up, and it's with a very, very strange partner. Strange, but also very wonderful. One I did not expect. It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Stranger Things gang. How about that, right? So the story behind this debut issue is that the Stranger Things kids are actually on some sort of a field trip or whatever to New York City, and they kind of break off from their little group and they go wandering around the streets and just take in the majesty that is New York City. But as they're passing a subway entrance, they hear a familiar sound. Not one they're very thrilled about. They hear monsters. The monsters they've been dealing with in the upside down opposite world that is Hawkins. Is that it? Hawkins, yeah. So they go down to the subway tunnels to investigate, and they find one of these monsters, and they're like, oh shit. But soon enough, 4 mutant turtles arrive and beat the shit out of these monsters, and eventually take the kids with them back to their lair to figure out what they were doing there and whatever. And so the kids fill them in on the fact of everything that's gone on in Hawkins with the monsters and everything. And so they start talking, and they look at, you know, they brought one of the corpses back, I think, with them. And it's obvious that the monsters from Hawkins is involved with this, but these monsters have been modified. They're actually equipped with tech that has obviously come from the mind of Baxter Stockman. So Baxter is just a real pain in the ass. Now he's using monsters along with his Mouser tech and all that stuff, right? So the two sides kind of team up, and they're like, we got to get to the bottom of this. Like, this, we can't just let this go. This is going to be a bad thing if they continue to go unchecked here. So the two sides team up, and they go on a mission to after Elle does some kind of psychic thing where she finds out some stuff on Baxter Stockman on where he is and how he created these things. They go on a mission to try and stop it. And but the whole thing was kind of a lure. As they come up out of a sewer, Baxter Stockman is there with a whole bunch of his forces, and he's like, Elle, perfect, I lured you here just like I wanted to, right? So then the fight begins between Baxter Stockman's forces and the Turtle / Stranger Things team. So obviously Baxter Stockman is familiar with Elle's capabilities and what has gone on in Hawkins. What he's after, though, we don't know quite yet, but I'm sure we'll find out soon, and I can't wait. I love all these team ups. There's some of them are like, you think, okay, yeah, Turtles and Batman kind of go together, right? They both fucking live in dank caves and shit like that. But then you see something like this, like Turtles and Stranger Things. Like, who ever guessed that would have been a thing, right? So I really like the crossovers and the team ups. It keeps things interesting, keeps things fun, and just allows me to buy more comics than I would without the team ups. So keep it up. Meow.